Good evening, readers, and welcome to week 3 of Sagalong 2021, in which we are reading Njal's saga. So I'm a bad co-host, and I haven't finished the section for today. Today we were supposed to be reading up to chapter 120, and I have only reached chapter 98. However, I have, I think, read probably the best chapter in the saga, and I wanted to share it with you and read it to you, because we talk a lot about in these videos about like the writing style in these sagas and the challenges that it sometimes poses to read something that was written down such a long time ago and perhaps with slightly different motivations for being written, and we're constantly talking about the names and how many names there are. There's a lot of names in this chapter that I'm going to read. I've just quickly jotted them down so I can help you out with them, but I just wanted to convey how this chapter really feels like it is written by somebody with a very similar idea of what works in terms of drama, a similar idea of what's sort of aesthetically pleasing in the vision that they're conjuring of the events in this scene. They have a good idea of what is going to be potentially emotive, and they have a good appreciation of gore. There's definitely, this is a battle scene, there is some brutality in it, shall we say, so squeamish, faint-hearted people need not apply for the role of companions to Icelandic axe-wielding heroes. So the main characters that I'm going to tell you about are the characters that are involved in the fight. This is going to be chapter 92, by the way. So there are two sides to this fight, and essentially the sides in the fight are aligned with characters that we are familiar with in this saga, but the two main characters that these groups are aligned with are not present in the battle part of this scene. So the first side is Njal, obviously it's Njal's saga, and the side that's aligned with him are his sons, essentially, and his foster son, I think it is. It says there's 5 of them at 2 points in the text, but I only counted 4 that are actually present in the battle scene. I might have miscounted. So there's Njal's son Skarfedim, his son Helgi, his son Grim, and his foster son Kari. And they are present in the fighting part. There are other people from his side, including his wife Bergthora, who are mentioned, but these are the main ones that will be in the battle scene. Then the other side is what I'm going to call Halgerd's side, and Halgerd has really dropped off as a character in this section of the thing, of the story, but we know who she is and we know what she's like, and we know that she's kind of one of the baddies. She's one of the main manipulative evildoers in this saga, and sorry, I just remembered that I have food cooking in the oven, but it's okay, it's not burning yet. Even though Gunnar's dead, she's still got some key little roles to play, I think, and I hope this isn't the last time that she appears. But she's always behind the scenes. So while Njal is always behind the scenes, normally kind of arguing for peace and arguing for maybe a toning down in hostilities or warning people what their actions are likely to result in, Halgerd is on the other side, kind of stoking up anger and stoking up the need for conflict and vengeance. So in this case, the setup to this chapter is that she has goaded people into using some quite vicious and considered to be very, very rude insults against Njal's family, and that has really upset Njal's sons, and they want to prove their ability to fight back against these insults. So the people who are on Halgerd's side, the kind of group that she's joined now that Gunnar is dead, the leading man of that family is Thrain. Thrain has been hanging out with a guy named Hrap, whose nickname is Killer Hrap, which should give you an idea of what kind of a character he is. Hrap has also been getting Njal's sons into trouble, and Hrap and Thrain together, by kind of running away from an angry Norwegian king, and kind of they get implicated in his escape. I found interesting about Hrap's running away scene that he hides in a barrel, and again with the Tolkien references, but it just made me think of, you know, the scene in The Hobbit, and I increasingly feel that Tolkien must have read this saga. I'm sure he did, because it's just too much of a coincidence to have somebody getting onto a barge and hiding from an angry king that's pursuing them in a barrel, and yeah, things like that. So anyway, Thrain and Killahrap have been hanging out, and he's also got some mates, Granny Gunnarsson, Gunnar Lamberson, Lambi Sigurdsson, Lodin and Chori. You don't need to remember all of their names, I'm just telling you those names so that you remember, broadly speaking, those are the two sides that we've got in this conflict. And the main setting for this fight scene is what I think is a stunning and fantastic setting, which is a frozen river, or a semi-frozen river, and it's called the Markarfljót. I am going to struggle with the Icelandic names. I'm going to anglicise them. When I'm stumbling over them as I'm reading aloud this section, I'm just going to try and pass straight by them. I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to pronounce them right, because I'm going to focus more on the flow of the reading and trying to show you with the reading just how nice the writing is, leaving aside all of the complications of the unfamiliar names. So yeah, I think I'm just going to dive straight in. I can't think what else I was going to say with that. Oh, just with the frozen river scene, I think to me that's a really familiar image, even from like the modern day, this idea of the kind of treacherous ground of a river that's frozen, and the idea that it comes with a change and a thaw, and the image of something quite forceful being locked up in the inside the ice, and that point of where it's thawing or where it's freezing, that it's just a process of change. And I think it's a very symbolic choice of a place to put this battle, but it also gives you a very strong visual image, and adds a sense of suspense and unpredictability to the events. I'm thinking of similar, like, I mean, you can go Disney and go Frozen, or like in the Chronicles of Narnia film version that they did maybe like 10 years ago now, there was a scene where they had a battle on a river that was melting, or there's all sorts of films particularly in my mind that draw on this image of a river that's just starting to break to pieces, I suppose. So anyway, that's a longer introduction than I intended. Now I'm going to dive into chapter 92 of Njáls Saga. This translation was by James Cook, I believe. And the conflict that they're referring to is when Hugard caused men to throw insults at Njáls' sons. There was much talk about this conflict of theirs, and everybody realised that as things were, it would not calm down. Runolf, the son of Alf Aurgodi from out east at Dal, was a friend of Thrain's and had invited Thrain to visit him. It was decided that he should come east in the 3rd or 4th week of winter. Thrain asked Killahrap, Granny Gunnarsson, Gunnar Lamberson, Lambi Sigurdsson, and Lodin and Tjorvi to travel with him. There were 8 men in all, and Thorgerd and Halgerd were to go too. Thrain let it be known that he planned to visit his brother Ketil at Morg, and he made clear how many days he planned to be away. They were all fully armed. They rode east, over the Markarfljót river, and met some poor women, and the women asked to be helped across to the west side of the river. They helped them. They then rode on to Dal, and had a good reception. Ketil of Mork was there ahead of them. They stayed for 2 days. Runolf and Ketil asked Thrain to make peace with the Njalsons, but he answered sharply, and said he would never pay them a thing, and he would never be unprepared to take on the Njalsons, no matter where they met. Perhaps that is so, said Ranulf, but my understanding is quite different. That no one, since Gunnar of Hliddarendi died, is a match for them, and it is more likely that this will lead to death on one side or the other. Thrain said he was not afraid of that. Thrain went up to Mork and stayed there for 2 days. Then he rode back down to Dal, and at both places he was sent away with fitting gifts. The Markarfljót was flowing between ledges of ice, with frozen arches spanning the stream here and there. Thrain said that he planned to ride home that evening. Runolf asked him not to, and said that it would be more prudent not to leave at the time that he had given. Thrain answered that would be showing fear, and I don't want that. The women whom they had helped across the river came to Bergthorsvoll, and Bergthora asked where they had come from, and they said from over east, in the Airfield district. Who helped you across the Markarfljót? Said Bergthora. The biggest show-offs around, they said. And who were they? Said Bergthora. Thrain Sigurdsson and his companions, they said, and we didn't like the way they were so loud-mouthed and foul-mouthed in talking about your husband and his sons. Many are unable to choose the words that are directed at them, said Bergthora. Then the women went away, and Bergthora gave them good gifts, and asked them how long Thrain would be away, and they said that he would be away 4 or 5 days. Bergthora then told this to her sons and her son-in-law, Kari, and they talked at length in secret. The same morning that Thrain and his men were riding from the east, Njal woke up early and heard Skarfedin's axe strike the wall of his bed-closet. Njal rose and went outside. He saw all his sons with their weapons, and also Carry, his son-in-law. Skarfedin was in front, in a black jacket, holding a small round shield with his axe ready on his shoulder. Next came Carry. He had on a silk jacket and a gilded helmet, and a shield with a lion drawn on it. After him came Helgi. He wore a red tunic and a helmet, and was carrying a red shield marked with a heart. They were all in dyed clothing. Njal called to Skarfedin. "Where are you going, son?" "To look for sheep," he said. "That's what you said the other time," said Njal. "But then you were hunting men." Skarfedin laughed and said, "Do you hear what the old man said? He's not naive." "When was the other time you said this?" said Carry. "When I killed Sigmund the White, Gunnar's kinsman," said Skarfedin. "Why?" asked Carry. "He had killed Thord Freeman's son, my foster-father," said Skarfedin. Njal went inside, and they went up to Raudaskrid and waited. From there they could see the others when they rode west from Dal. The sun was shining, and the skies were clear that day. Thrain now came riding down from Dal along the gravel plain. Lambi Sigurdsson spoke. "Shields are shining over there at Raudaskrid, where the sun hits them. Some men must be lying in ambush." "Then let's turn and ride down along the river," said Thrain, "and they'll come to meet us, if they have any business with us." They turned and went downstream, along the river. Skarfedin spoke. "They've seen us now because they're changing their course, and now the only thing is to run down there ahead of them." Carry spoke. "Many men lay ambushes with better odds than this. There are 8 of them, and 5 of us." They headed down along the river, and saw where a frozen arch spanned it downstream, and they decided to cross over there. Thrain and his men made their stand on the ice on the upriver side of the arch. Thrain said, "What can these men want? There are 5 of them and 8 of us." Lambi Sigurdsson said, "My guess is they would risk it, even if more were waiting for them." Thrain took off his cloak and helmet. It happened that Skarfedin, while they were running down along the river, that his shoestring snapped, and he fell behind. "Why are you holding back, Skarfedin?" "I'm tying my shoe," said Skarfedin. "Let's get on ahead," said Carry. "I doubt he'll be any slower than we are." They moved down towards the frozen arch at great speed. Skarfedin jumped up as soon as he had tied his shoe and had his axe raised. He ran to the river, but it was so deep that for a long stretch it was unfordable. A broad slab of ice, smooth as glass, had formed on the other side of the river, and Thrain and his men were standing in the middle of it. Skarfedin took off into the air and leapt across the river from one ice ledge to the other and made a steady landing and shot on in a glide. The ice slab was very smooth, and Skarfedin went along as fast as a bird in flight. Thrain was about to put on his helmet, but Skarfedin came at him first and swung his axe at him and hit him on the head and split it down to the jaw so that the molars fell out on the ice. This happened in such rapid sequence that no one could land a blow on Skarfedin. He went gliding away at furious speed. Tjorvi threw a shield in his way, but he hopped over it and kept his balance and glided to the end of the ice slab. Then Carry and the others came up to him. "A manly attack that," said Carry. "Your part is yet to come," said Skarfedin. Then they went at them. Grim and Helgi saw where Hrap was and headed for him. Hrap swung his axe at Grim. Helgi saw this and swung at Hrap's arm and cut it off, and the axe fell down. Hrap spoke. "You've done what needed doing. That arm brought wounds and death to many a man." "This will put an end to it," said Grim, and thrust his spear through him. Hrap fell down dead. Tjorvi went against Carry and threw a spear at him. Carry leapt into the air, and the spear flew under his feet. Then Carry rushed at him and swung at him with his sword, and it hit the chest and went deep inside, and Tjorvi died at once. Skarfedin grabbed hold of both Gunnar Lamberson and Granny Gunnarsson and spoke. "I've caught 2 puppies. Now what shall I do with them?" "You could choose to kill them both," said Helgi, "if you wanted to seal their fate." "I don't have the heart," said Skarfedin, "to help Hogni and at the same time kill his brother Granny." "Some day it will come about that you will wish," said Helgi, "that you will wish she had killed him, for he will never keep faith with you, nor will any of those who are here now." Skarfedin spoke. "I will not fear them." So they spared Granny Gunnarsson and Gunnar Lamberson and Lambi Sigurdsson and Lodin. After that they went back home, and Jarl asked what had happened. They told him everything. Jarl spoke. "These are serious events, and it is likely that the death of one of my sons will result from this, if nothing worse." Gunnar Lamberson returned home and brought Thrain's body to Gryota, and there a mound was raised over him. And that is the end of the chapter. So yeah, hope you can appreciate why I chose that one to read. I don't normally particularly like battle scenes, but the sense of motion and the sense of flow that you get from that chapter I found really powerful. I think also some things that you wouldn't necessarily appreciate if you hadn't read the whole of Njaal's saga up to this point is the use of foreshadowing and build-up, I suppose, because Njaal's sons haven't frequently been involved in conflict. Njaal points out that this is the second time that they've gone out claiming to be hunting sheep. I would put down a reasonable small amount of money that they will go out a third time and something worse will happen on the third time they go out claiming to be hunting sheep, because I feel like that's the kind of pattern that we're getting from these sagas is things go in threes. See last week's video. But generally speaking, Njaal's side of the family have been trying to contain the violence. So there has been all of these comments about Njaal's sons not having strength and force and not being able to kill and attack people, and that has kind of built up to them reaching this state of kind of pent-up anger and aggression where they would go out as a group of 5 and take on 8 men and just, you know, wipe the floor with them, basically. Then the other thing is, like, even just in the chapter before, there's an altercation between Thrain and Skarthedin when they talk about, like, which one of them is going to hurt the other, and there is this statement of, I'm going to split your head in two with an axe, basically. And the wonderful thing about the sagas is quite often they say something like that, and that is just... it just tells you a little bit, it gives you a little bit of a clue of which way the next battle is going to play out. But then sometimes it's just like empty words and it's just people kind of jostling for position, and yeah, so it's nice that sometimes that's just, it's not even foreshadowing because it's so blatant, but it's just kind of like telling you what to expect in the next chapters, but always kind of like slightly playing with your expectations. You're always slightly thinking, is it just posturing or is this really going to come to blows? Because sometimes it is just posturing. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. My food is now cooked, so I'm going to go and eat and have a lovely Saturday evening, and I hope you're enjoying Njaal's saga if you are joining in with the Sagalong. And yeah, I haven't watched the videos from the other co-hosts because I need to finish this section before I do. I don't want to, you know, get more spoilers. But I will be doing so soon, and I highly recommend that you check out all of their channels. Take care.